Hey YouTube, I've got another video for you guys already. Nothing super huge, but I do have a few machines I'd like to talk about here. So there's a client of mine, I guess you could say. I like saying client, makes me sound fancy. Who gave me a handful of computers and pretty much said, I want Windows 7 on one of these. He's done that a few times now and I've fulfilled his request pretty good, so he keeps giving me computers, which is pretty nice. So I'm going to go over some stuff I got. A few days ago, well, he owns the office my dad rents for his work, so he dropped some computers off with my dad. My dad brought them home, and I'm working on them now. He gave me a handful of them. I don't have some of them right here, but he pretty much told me that he wanted Windows 7 on one computer and I can get rid of all the data on the rest. So one of the computers he gave me was this thing. Oh, I do that non-stop. Kick stuff over. It's a custom built, and this is actually kind of coincidental because I got two of these cases, this kind of case that is, a year or two ago. And I just sold one computer with this type of case and three other case hooks since I didn't have a case siding for it, and just so happens I'm getting another computer with the same case. But anyway, he gave me this. It had a 3.2 gigahertz Pentium 4 hyper-threading socket T in it. Put it outside so you can actually see inside it. Had 1.5 gigs of DDR2 memory, I think. I actually can't remember how much. It might have only been one, but I put a gig and a half of DDR2 533 dual channel. Upgrade the Pentium 4 to a 3.4 gigahertz. Boy, those things like to run hot. This thing's not going to overheat or anything, but it's pretty good. Also had a 160 gig SATA 7200 RPM hard drive in it, which I put in another computer for a different purpose. I'm just going to go ahead and start it up. And I'm actually pretty surprised because you think this opens up the most inconvenient way possible. You'd expect Pentium 4 computers to always be pretty slow, but they're really not. I put XP Pro on this thing. I know it's Windows XP, but I'm not going to put Vista on this because it would run really slowly in 7. Not worth the cost of the license. But yeah, I was setting it up, and it only has one IDE plug on the motherboard, and that's used up by the CD drive. So what I did was I went ahead and took the SATA hard drive out of it because I was using it for another purpose. I actually got another SATA hard drive, another computer I'll talk about in a sec. I could have put it in this thing, it was an 80 gig, but you know, the Pentium 4 and 533 megahertz memory, I don't really know if it's worth it to use a SATA hard drive in this thing. So I went ahead and I put an IDE in it. But since there's only one IDE channel, you got to use one cable for two drives. And usually the hard drive goes in right here, but I didn't have a cable that could plug into both this and this. So I made some little brackets. Here's two more of them. Put these brackets in the side of the hard drive, and slid the hard drive into the rail system in here. Now it's mounted up here. It doesn't have great cooling, but you know, I don't think a hard drive will overheat, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. So we got the hard drive as the primary IDE device, and the CD drive as a secondary. It works fine. You know, it's actually a pretty fast machine. It's a 7200 RPM 80 gig IDE, so it's not too slow. Yeah, I mean, this thing's not super fast, of course, but considering the fact it's got a Pentium 4, oops, I didn't actually click on it. Considering the fact it's got a Pentium 4, you know, it's pretty fast in my standards. I just finished setting this thing up. It does have a PCI Express slot, but I'm not going to put one of my PCI cards in it, or PCI Express cards, I mean. The only ones I've got left are pretty good. I want to save those for machines with dual cores in them, or at least dual cores, maybe even quad cores. But I had a power supply, I had that power supply in it, and it was working great. And this rear fan, there was another rear fan in it, and that pretty much was seized and not working, so I replaced that. Remember, I was checking the airflow on this new fan, I was checking airflow on the power supply, right? Didn't feel any airflow coming out of the power supply. I realized that the power supply fan wasn't spinning on this thing, so I took it apart and was going to put a new fan from the power supply. I took another power supply apart, but the connector was different. It was 3-pin instead of this 2-pin. And I don't have a whole lot of other power supplies, so I decided, screw it, I'll deal with this later, if at all. It's a 380 watt. And I just put a different power supply in it. This one's a 375 watts, so it's essentially the same thing. Just got less connectors on it than the other one. So this thing's pretty fast. Finished updating it. I finally got around the other day to making a Windows XP professional installation CD. Yes, it is completely legal. With updates and Internet Explorer 8 slipstreamed into it. I did that for XP Home a while back, but not for Pro. And after installing XP on it, I only had about 50 megs of updates to download and install. And I already had Internet Explorer 8 on it, because that takes about 20 minutes to install. So the updating process was pretty quick. So this thing didn't take a whole lot of time to set up because of that. So I'm pretty happy with it. It's working fine. I haven't seen any issues from it. It's pretty fast too, so I'm going to go ahead and sell this thing pretty soon. Although the CPU runs kind of hot, it stays within the 60s. Never, well, sometimes it dips down to the 50s Celsius, but never goes into the 70s, I don't think. Which on a new computer I'd be concerned about, but considering the fact, this is an kind of old-ish computer, and probably whoever buys it probably isn't going to use it for more than a couple of years. It doesn't really matter if it runs that hot, unless it's like overheating, which it's not. Okay, so that's that. That's pretty cool. It also gave me a couple other machines, but today was today's Saturday, so I had the dump, you could call it, open Saturdays. So I wanted to, if I was going to scrap anything, I wanted to do it by today to actually get the cases out of here. Because, if I scrap a computer after the place is closed, I have to have the cases lying around until next week. These were two machines. One of them was actually the same model as that machine over there. I got that thing a couple years ago. I was sitting around for a while. I finally got back to it and started to sell it. It's a Compaq D51C, I think. One of these this one was to it. It had DDR266 memory and a 2.4 Pentium 4 in it. It doesn't sell for much. It's got some burst capacitors in the motherboard, so I just scrapped the thing, The CPU's right there. I might keep it. Maybe I won't. Memory's right there as well. This was to a Lenovo desktop. It's one of those weird ones with the slanted fronts. It takes sync memory. It had like a, I don't know, 1.7 Pentium 4. I scrapped that, so I'm just going to scrap this as well. The motherboard looks like it's in... Actually, no, it does have some slightly bulged capacitors on it, but... neither of these things are worth enough for me to actually sell them. So I'm just going to go ahead and forget about it. Although it did have, that Lenovo did have a couple chips of sync memory. I know sync memory is usually pretty crappy, but it's 512 meg chips of PC133. And PC133 is really old, but 512 meg chips, I got some servers that take sync memory. Like this one right here and that one right there. And, 2 chips totaling a gig can be pretty good, because if those things have 4 slots, I could put 2 gigs in memory in a server, which ain't too bad. So yeah, that's that. So those 3. He also gave me another computer I might talk about later in this video. It was a Dell. It was a Dell. It was one of those slim Dells, a small form factor. It had a 2.33 gigahertz Core 2 Duo, 1.5 GB memory, upgraded that to 3. It's DDR667. And I took the 160 gig SATA hard drive out of this one and put it into that computer, and that computer had 80 gig SATA hard drive. So I took that out, wiped it, and it's in my hard drive area over there. So yeah, pretty much. I gotta stop the video right now though. I'll begin it again in a sec. So those 4 computers I just showed you, those 2 that I scrapped, this one and one I talked about, were in the latest batch of computers that guy gave me. And the other one's all finished upgrading to 7. I just need to... Well, I already bought the COA for on eBay. I'm just waiting for it to arrive. So that's the latest batch. Last batch he gave me was a few of them, half of which I can't remember. But the last batch, one of them was this thing. This is an HP DC7100. It's got a, let me see. I'm not showing the model because you can see the COA if I do. It's got a Pentium 4. I think it had a 3 gigahertz gigabyte of memory in it. It's a pretty decent computer. I'm just going to pull it out real quick. So here's the inside of it. It's got a pretty interesting looking heatsink to it. You've got the copper pipes in the side. I think that's a Socket 478. It takes DDR memory. I think it's got here. Yeah, 512 megs. I can't remember if it had anything else in it. Since I've been working on this stuff a lot, so it's hard to remember. It's weird though. It's got DDR but PCI Express by 16, which is an interesting config. And this also had... Oh, let me think. I think it had a SATA drive in it. Yeah, this had an 80 gig SATA drive in it. Not the one I was talking about before, though. But I took the drive from this. Oh, what did I do? I can't remember. I think I wiped it. Oh yeah, I must have wiped it. So I think I have 2 SATA drives now. I think I messed up. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I did with it. Yeah, I'm really not sure. Anyway, so yeah. I might set it up, but there's a lot of listings for this thing on eBay, I think, if I remember correctly, so I don't really think it's worth putting a SATA drive into it. SATA drives are pretty scarce for me. I like to save them for the better builds. This thing doesn't sell for much anyway, probably 20 bucks profit if even, so yeah, quick mention towards batch. I think the last batch of computers gave me, along with that one, I also got this thing here. That was not good. Whatever. This guy's a Dimension 3000. It's got a stick of memory. I think I had 2 sticks. I think I had a gig total. It's got a 2.8 Pentium 4, I think. Yep, 512 megs DDR400. Weird thing about some of these Dells is some of them take 400 megahertz memory, some of them cap at 333. I don't know why. But I took the bezel and everything off to dust it out, and I don't even know if I'm going to sell it. I could sell it and earn a little bit of money off it, but it would only be about 10 or 15 bucks profit, and I honestly don't know if it's worth it. I mean, I got enough case settings for it. Maybe I'll just go for it, you know. But I might scrap it. You know, keep the memory and the Pentium 4 and all that, and the power supply and the drive and stuff. But I don't know. Haven't decided what to do with it yet. And then last batch, I also got some computers I scrapped, but I can't quite remember what they are. But each of these 2 computers, this went to one. I think this one. No, this one had one hard drive to it, a 17 gig. Tossed that. This one had a 40 and a 60. I wiped the 60, but I think the 40 is acting up. So I was going to wipe it, but this computer says there's a problem with the drive, so I'm probably just going to throw this 40 out. I've got plenty of 40 gigs anyway. Still got this computer sitting here I mentioned in my last video. One with a quad-core AMD Phenom. Completely trash-picked. Might give it to my friend, I might lend it to him. But if I do give it to him, I might make him pay for a code for Windows 7, because I have a code free, but I paid a lot of money for it, and you know, I don't want to put that much money into this thing. But I'm probably going to sell it at some point, so I can probably get 100 bucks out of that thing easy. So yeah, my friend's riding the go-kart around. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it for out here. So here are your other machines I was talking about. This one is the one I was given in the batch of a few computers the other day, so I had to put Windows 7 on. Go ahead and start it up for you. And I've mentioned this in my other videos before. I've worked on some computers here, but what I've mentioned is that there's no wired internet here, so I have an Ethernet cable, that yellow one right there. And what I'll do is I'll hook my laptop up and just put my laptop on that rack right there, and tell my laptop to output the wireless connection through the Ethernet. So I'll essentially get Ethernet through my laptop through the wireless on these things, but I don't need to do it right now. This thing's all finished setting up and everything. So yeah, and to go over the specs again, it's got a 2.33 gigahertz Core 2 Duo. It's got a 1333 megahertz FSP, which I found interesting. DDR2 memory, I think it's got 3 gigs, and flex mode because I got 3 1 gig chips. I guess two of those chips can kind of function in dual channel, and one of them kind of has to function in single channel. So I guess flex is like a mix between the two. 160 gig, 7200 RPM SATA hard drive. Okay. What else? That's pretty much it. Well, it's kind of weird that the CPU's FSP is 1333 megahertz, but it's still, it's only using 67 megahertz memory. Built-in speakers, and there's a driver on this thing. I can't figure out what it is. I mean, Device Manager, after I installed Windows, it said I needed 2 simple communication and 2 PCI simple communications drivers. I got one of them, which was a serial port and everything, but the other one, I don't know what it is. Just weird. The thing's pretty fast. The ratings are really bad. The Windows rating, that's because the graphics performance is crap. Yeah, PCI simple communications. I don't know what it is. I've tried a bunch of different drivers from the website, but I don't know. So that's enough on this thing. Now, I was talking earlier in this video about how I didn't know where a 80 gig hard drive went. I showed you this some HP desktop or something, and I said I took a hard drive out of it, and I didn't know where I put it. So anyway, that hard drive came out of that thing, that HP desktop I showed you. Went into this thing. This is a computer I've been, sitting on for quite some time. It's been out near my work area. It's kind of sitting there. I finally got a hard drive for it. Those are its specs. Yeah, it's been sitting around for quite a while. I just realized that these two machines here, this one that I've had sitting around for a while, and this one, same model number. It's kind of interesting. They got two different types of CPUs and everything. This one's probably at least a couple years newer, maybe a year newer, I don't know. But yeah, I put Vista on this thing, because I guess Vista's better than nothing. Although the front bezel is kind of coming off, so I had to super glue it on. And the DVD drive you can kind of push in a little bit, and then when you go to open it, sometimes sticks and kind of moved around a little bit to get it to pop out. But things like that are things I mentioned in the listing if I sell it on eBay. So yeah, but I think that concludes this video, except for one more thing I'm going to mention, which I can't do right now, so that'll be in a little bit. So here's what else I was going to mention. This is my gaming PC, obviously, and what I was going to say was that I brought this computer over to my friend's house yesterday. Well, yesterday was actually the same day I recorded the first part of this video, but anyway, I brought it over around 3 or 4 o'clock, and the reason I brought it over was because his internet's pretty good. Mine sucks. Mine's 1.2 megabits a second. His is 24, so I set it up over there and started downloading, and downloaded for the entire day, and I only got around to picking it up from his house this morning, and I downloaded a whole bunch of games. Probably about 80 gigabytes of games. Battlefield 3, Assassin's Creed 4, Splinter Cell Blacklist, all that good stuff. Downloaded all that, but the problem is, you can see here, that I don't have a whole lot of hard drive space available. I got a 240 gig SSD that's nearing full, and then my 1 terabyte hard drive is pretty much full to the brim. So I decided that I'd want to upgrade my storage, because I can get another 1 terabyte hard drive for $70, which is a pretty good deal. Same model as this one. This one's been pretty good to me. I've had it for a couple years and hasn't, expressed any issues. It hasn't crashed at all. It doesn't even make any noise or anything. So I'm pretty happy with that. What I could do is I could take this hard drive out, replace it with like a 2 or 3 terabyte. The 2 or 3 terabyte hard drives out there aren't that reliable. They usually die in a couple years, if even. And I decided that, it would be more price effective for me to just buy a second 1 terabyte of the same model for $70. Pop it in here and put these two in, and put the two of them in RAID 0. Of course, this is my boot disk. This is my 64 gig SSD from a while ago. So it's sitting here. It's not actually plugged in. But so I'd have my 240 gig SSD with Windows on it, and 2 terabytes of RAID 0 drives with my other stuff on it, and it's a pretty good configuration, I think. So there are 2 parts to actually doing that, though. The first problem is getting RAID configured with this thing, and getting the current Windows installation to accept RAID. The second part of the problem is actually getting a second drive, putting these 2 guys in RAID, and taking a disk image of the second drive, and putting it to the new logical drive without Windows losing recognition of the fact that, it has all its registry ties to it, because I do have some programs installed on this, and of course, if you take a hard drive with a bunch of programs on it, and you put it into another computer, of course, the programs are all broken and stuff, because, it doesn't actually link to the registry. That's kind of my understanding of it. Anyway, so I'm going to do that, and yeah, so I have the first part of the problem done. I actually ended up configuring RAID with this thing. Something I didn't know until today was that this motherboard, it's an X79 Extreme 6, by the way. It has 2 SATA controllers. So its bottom, well, one of the SATA things is hidden by the video card, but there's 8 SATA ports. 2 there, which are SATA 2, 2 there, which are SATA 2, 2 there, which are SATA 3, and it's losing focus, sorry. Come on. Give me your camera. Anyway, and there's 2 more ports under the video card. They're also SATA 3. 6 of the ports are Intel. The other 2 ports are AS Media. And the Intel ones support RAID, the AS Medias don't. And of course, setting the SATA operation to RAID mode pretty much made Windows crash. And I used a registry editor and edit the registry to actually, accept RAID and install a driver, and it still crashed. So what I did was I put my SSD temporarily on the AS Media SATA controller and turned RAID on the Intel SATA controller. So effectively, this hard drive was functioning RAID, and this one is functioning normal HCI. And then installed the RAID driver, boot up Windows, and noticed it worked. So I shut it down and I plugged the SSD back into the Intel SATA controller, and now it works fine. So I pretty much just had to temporarily move the SSD to the other SATA controller without RAID on it to install the SATA driver and all that stuff. So all the drives this thing are now functioning in RAID mode, though there aren't actually any effective RAID volumes configured yet. But I'm going to go ahead and probably today buy a 1 terabyte hard drive and then deal with the entire issue of having to take a drive image of this drive and transfer that to the new logical drive once I actually configure RAID, which might be an issue. Because if I have to re-download all the stuff in my 1 terabyte drive, like all my 900 gigs of games and stuff, then I'm gonna be pretty annoyed. So that's just my mention of this thing. This drive is dead. This drive I got out of a 2008 HP I was working on for somebody about 1.5 years ago. It's a Blu-ray disc drive, but this thing died, I think. So yeah, I gotta find my cover for that thing. But you know. But I downloaded Assassin's Creed 4 in this, and I found out that this computer plays Assassin's Creed 4 on like medium settings with the FPS dipping to like 20 sometimes. It's pretty sad. The game's optimized horribly. My Lenovo laptop barely plays the games at the lowest settings. It's ridiculous. It's optimized so horribly. But anyway, that's just kind of a side note. Why is my desktop not changing? This is like, I don't even like this background. This is like one of my 20 or 30 backgrounds. Whatever. Anyway, yeah, it's gonna be it for this video. So I thank you all for watching, and I'll probably make a video fairly soon, depending on how things go. And if I get another batch of computers, probably if I have anything interesting to mention about this computer, I'll do that. I'm thinking of making some videos on maybe I'll make a video on how to configure or how to enable RAID on this thing without screwing up a current Windows installation, because it seems as if a lot of people could use that. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, I hope.